Q with Summer Games and the best boogie in Southern California. 4:30 exactly.
Stand by for another announcement from KISS Army Headquarters.
10Q Radio Los Angeles, making history with better boogie and lots of wham. In other words, it is kissational. 30 seconds from right now, ladies and gentlemen, Paul Stanley.
This is Paul Stanley of KISS, and I'm telling you...
Wait a minute, Paul. Wait a minute. Hold on 1 second, Paul. Unless you just want to go. You got a statement to make?
I love you. I love being here. I love everybody. Touch me.
Now, Paul is going to do the first pouting lip tag in radio history. Stand by. All right, and now a pouted tag, Paul.
Listen to this, New York accent and everything.
Go ahead.
There are 26 active West locations throughout the L.A. area. See their ad in the Times calendar section or ask the operator for the number of the active West Center nearest you.
Barracuda, Paul. Good Barracuda, baby. All right. Watch out, Ace, you're next.
KISS and Cheap Trick, another fun production.
Now, Space Ace is here. Go ahead, Space Ace, you're on.
Hi, Carolies. If you come to the show, you're going to hear me sing lead for the first time in my life. And I hope you like it.
All right.
Because I'm going to sing Shock Me, and I'm going to shock you. So I want to see you there for the 3 shows every night. All right.
Up front, right, man?
I'll do my best, Carl.
Oh, baby, this is it.
Jumpin' Jack Flair.
Thank you, baby. I feel your love because I got KISS, man.
We got the real man of steel right here at 10Q. Ow!
Mercy, Jane. Ace is on the boogie phone, 520 WINS. He'll answer any question.
And he's got his pants down.
Zip, baby, zip with a real Don Steele on the new 10Q at 3:44. Ladies and gentlemen, here he is, Paul Sadly, pouting lips and all, selling Levi's. Paul?
Yeah, you want Levi's jeans, right? Right. Genuine Levi's jeans. Well, now you can get them for a lot less at the Gap. That's right, the Gap. Famous for an incredible selection of styles, sizes, and colors, which means you don't have to settle for second best. When you have to wear clothes, you can select genuine Levi's denim belts and big belts, or cord flares, and straight legs at the Gap. Just a low $12.50 a pair. That's right, $12.50 a pair. They're regular $15.50 to $17 values. Only $12.50 at the Gap. So say goodbye to second best and say hello to savings on genuine Levi's jeans at the Gap. I love you. Take my pants.
Kiss off! All right, baby. Pout your mouth, Paul. I'm best. I'm the new 10Q, ladies and gentlemen, baby. I'm the real Don Steele. Best of my love. I got KISS with me, baby. You hear that? Yeah. All right, at 3:54. I want...
Do you think we should tell them?
Oh, okay, wait a minute. I'm going to... I know there's... There's something funny happening here, man. Am I reoccurring? They told me I would reoccur.
Folks, we didn't want anybody to know, but we're naked.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are now broadcasting naked from 10Q here on the Western Strip. All right. Now, wait a minute. First of all, Gene Simmons with a tongue-thrusting PSA. Take it away, Gene.
This is a public service announcement for all you boys and girls out there with tired, poor blood. The Los Angeles County Department of Health Services needs blood donors. Call the blood bank program for the location nearest you, 974-8181. And if you think you're going to catch me without my makeup, you got another thing coming.
Now the weather by Paul.
Kiss off weather. Fair tonight and sunny tomorrow. Low tonight, 69. High tomorrow, hello, 87. Now it's 84. And now we got some music by Boston. I'm going to talk over the beginning of this song because that's the way the DJs always do it. You just cue me, you tell me when. Long time. Hi, everybody. How you doing? 5, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2. Ow!
I'm the new 10Q, ladies and gentlemen. I am at this very moment being fed ice cream by Gene Simmons.
Here's an interesting story, kind of unusual. I left New York to go out on tour with the guys for a few days. And I arrived in a city. I can't tell you which city it was because there were so many cities we were always in. But I come from the airport, and I finally arrive backstage at the arena. And I see someone running into the arena as I arrive. I'm saying, oh, something's up. It's almost as though he was tipping them off that I was coming. And so I go to the arena door, and I walk in. And everyone's a little quiet. I still don't know what's happening. I'm walking backstage, and on the side of the stage, I hear this vocal group, but it's led by a woman, not by the guys. But I hear this backup group. I turn the corner, and who's there but Gracie Slick singing with 4 backup people that I didn't recognize at first. But of course, who were they? They were Kiss and Drag. Yes, Paul Stanley went out and bought dresses for each one of the guys, and they decided they were going to be the backup group for Gracie Slick. Well, Gracie was on the tour because she was going out with our lighting director, who she eventually married. But this was quite a day. And I walked in, and there they were, 4 Kiss members in full drag, backing up Gracie Slick, singing me a song and serenading me as I walked into the arena. That didn't last long. They started racing after me. I think they had an extra dress, but I wasn't sure.
Even though Love Gun, which was released in 1977, was our 3rd album in a row to ship 1 million copies, the band came apart at the seams during that time. It wasn't that we were breaking up, but people were starting to need their own space again. We had been together for 5 years, which is coming up on the typical lifespan of a band. I always had the sense that the Beatles were around forever. But when you look at the number of years, it's astonishing how brief they were. Only a decade of existence, and only 7 years of recording from Meet the Beatles to Let It Be. The strain was pulling us apart, but it was also pushing us forward into new projects. First, a Marvel artist named Steve Gerber, who was a big fan, put us in the last 2 issues of Howard the Duck. We were demons who possessed Howard. Marvel noticed that those 2 Howard the Duck issues soared in sales even though we weren't on the cover, so they approached us about a Kiss comic book. Someone arranged for me to meet Stan Lee, the head of Marvel. He was a god to me. We talked and found that we were kindred spirits. He had changed his name because he didn't want people to know he was Jewish, as had I. The wings on my outfit were influenced by a character called Black Bolt that Stan Lee had created. As the Kiss comic book project moved along, someone came up with the idea of putting real blood in the ink. It wasn't me. Maybe it was Bill or Sean. We got into a DC-3, one of those big prop planes, and flew up to Buffalo to Marvel's printing plant, where they pour the ink and make comic books. A notary public actually witnessed the blood being drawn. The comic book, which was published in 1978, became Marvel's biggest-selling comic book.
One of Bill's follies was the movie Kiss Meets the Phantom of the Park. He thought that film was the next step for us. The Beatles had A Hard Day's Night and Help, and we should have our film. He sold it to us as A Hard Day's Night meets Star Wars, which had come out the year before. It would have lots of cool special effects. Nobody in the band had the slightest clue about acting. None of us read the script. We didn't care. We trusted Bill's judgment. When we started filming, it didn't take an expert in the field to know we were in deep shit and there was no getting out of it. The director asked us after each scene whether we thought it was good. We had no idea what we were doing. For us, a good take was one where we didn't blow our lines. If we said the right words, we moved on to the next shot. Someone off camera fed us our lines. When we got ready to roll the camera, I yelled, "Line!" And someone said something like, "Gee, Ace, it's time we get going." Then I said, "Gee, Ace, it's time we get going." That's a keeper.
No gratitude need be voiced. Your mind speaks to us.
You're looking for someone, but it's not Kiss. It was horrific. It didn't remotely resemble acting. In one scene, we levitated a box using wires. We assumed the wires would be rendered invisible by special effects people. Not so. Meanwhile, the 4 of us weren't speaking unless we were delivering lines. Peter and Ace frequently left during filming. In one scene, we had to use Ace's stunt double, who happened to be black, after Ace left without notice. It was clear as day in the final version that it wasn't Ace. We had to play a fake concert at Magic Mountain Amusement Park for another scene. When we were on stage, I turned around and saw some random old man in cat makeup and a wig playing the drums and chewing gum. Peter had taken off and they threw this guy up there.
Midway through 1978, Hanna-Barbera, the famous cartoon producers, approached us about being in a movie. The movie was shot at an amusement park called Magic Mountain, which had the biggest roller coaster in the world. We were literally never on a soundstage. The entire story took place in the park. The story was, a mad scientist was terrorizing visitors to this haunted amusement park. Kiss helped to unmask the scientist and solve the mystery. The director of the movie was Gordon Hessler, a director of action and suspense movies. He was actually very sweet about it. He would do a shot and ask us how things went. What did we know? They basically shot around us because we were the stars. We took 2 hours to put our makeup on. By that time, Ace and Peter were miserable. When we did Kiss Meets the Phantom of the Park, the rest of the band was incensed because the newspaper ads usually showed a much larger photo of me. If they showed any other figure, they were all in the background, and my face was 4 times the size of everybody else's. Paul and I have always had a kind of brotherly competitive thing, and we had quite a bit of back and forth over the years. Paul would get slightly angry because he perceived that I was dominating the band too much, or vice versa. But the ads for the movie, and particularly those in TV Guide, really bothered Ace and Peter. They felt they weren't as involved in the film as Paul and I were. We didn't really have a choice. First of all, Peter had been involved in yet another car accident. He skidded 400 feet before he crashed, and he wound up in the hospital. When he did speak in the movie, he was impossible to understand because of his thick Brooklyn accent, so his voice was dubbed by someone else.
I me bucko with a scurvy crew steaming close behind, and I do mean steaming.
There they are. Sorry to bother you boys. Look, someone vandalized our park last night, smashed some of our buildings and injured a few of our guards. Well, Gene, they think it was you.
Gene's brother was an only child.
Easy, Catman. They are serious.
And they've got guns.
We had 2 writers with us who were writing the script for Kiss Meets the Phantom of the Park, and they wanted to get a sense of how everybody talked before they wrote the script. Ace in those days was non-communicative. He didn't say much. No matter what you said to him, he would make the parrot sound, "Awk!" Nobody understood it, and when he wasn't making the parrot noise, he would mumble nonsense to himself. 13 for a dozen, or "I kills them all, one by one," and then he would laugh. These phrases meant something only to Ace, and nobody had a clue what he was talking about. When the script came in, Ace's character never spoke. He only said, "Awk." Ace was furious. He wanted to know why they didn't give him any lines. To their credit, they turned around and said, "What are you, nuts? You have never said anything to us except awk. We thought that's the way you want to talk." Ace said he had a lot to say. Well, he should have said it. Even the simple matter of getting Peter and Ace in front of the camera didn't always work out. Sometimes they went missing. They just didn't come to the set. The only solution was to use doubles. For Peter, we had a 55-year-old guy, and we put makeup on him. For Ace, an African-American stunt double. Making the movie wasn't smooth, it wasn't easy, and it wasn't particularly fun. But like almost everything else we did then, it was a success. Kiss Meets the Phantom was eventually shown on NBC at Halloween. Because the television ratings were so strong, AFCO Embassy released it theatrically outside the United States. When we toured Canada, I saw it at a movie theater. When we toured Australia, I saw it at a drive-in.
When the movie was finished, we saw it at a screening at the Screen Actors Guild Theater on Sunset Boulevard. If you thought it was bad on a TV screen, you should have seen it on the big screen. People openly laughed. I slunk down in my seat. It was humiliating. The finished film was absolutely awful, and to have to stand when the lights came up while various people who had been involved with it came over to lie to me about how great it was made it that much more humiliating. Apparently, Gene and I didn't live recklessly enough and were too business-minded to meet the credibility criteria of some hip music magazines. The premise that some desk-bound journalist might deem me worthy of his seal of approval only if I played Russian roulette with my life had an irony to it that wasn't lost on me. Drug usage was and is sheer stupidity, and sooner or later there was always a heavy price to pay for it. I wasn't interested in being a dead legend. Our closest contemporaries were Aerosmith. The difference was how we were viewed. They were a rock band, and we were so much more. In some quarters, there was more credibility in being a rock band, but the impact of being an all-encompassing phenomenon was more widespread and diverse. It made us more interesting to newspapers and magazines, little kids, and preachers. The interesting thing was the way that for some people being a phenomenon didn't correlate with being a band, as if it undermined our credibility, as if the impact of the image, the logo, and all the press eclipsed what was otherwise as good as a lot of bands the critics did love. Journalists constantly dismissed us with the same basic argument. If we were any good musically, we wouldn't need any of the visual effects. What never seemed to occur to them was the possibility that we were good and that we wanted and loved all the rest. Part of the perception problem had to do with Neil Bogart and Casablanca Records. The label released Donna Summer's disco anthem, Love to Love You Baby, which became a smash hit over the course of 1976. Hit singles were Neil's thing, and it altered the way he did business. He made Casablanca into a singles-oriented label and focused on acts like the Village People. Kiss went from being the signature band on Casablanca to being part of a sideshow label, part of a menagerie. Instead of being in the company of rock bands, we shared a label with a bunch of guys dressed up like construction workers and cops and a band that wore ballet slippers. People who wanted to see us as pap or contrived had only to look at the company we were in to reinforce their suspicions. It solidified any negative impressions people had of us. Part of the perception problem was due to simple subjective differences in how people saw things. If Bruce Springsteen slid on his knees, critics called it showmanship. If I did, they considered it some sort of scam, a circus trick. One guy was a showman and the other was a charlatan. But sometimes it had a darker side that corresponded to things we overheard. Things about how we were money-hungry Jews or kikes, as if our entrepreneurial ability weren't a positive trait, but rather a trait of deceit or manipulation, because that wasn't rock and roll, that was what Jews did. The same sentiments infected the inner workings of the band, too. I think in Peter's case it had to do with his upbringing and the fact that he wasn't very bright. Ace owned a lot of Nazi memorabilia. Now I'm sure there are people who collect that stuff who aren't Nazis or anti-Semites, but Ace was not one of them. Barely below the surface of the band's interactions was a simmering and ongoing resentment and anger directed at me and Gene. We ran the band and wrote almost all the songs and generated the ideas, not because Kiss was a dictatorship, but because the other guys' contributions just didn't amount to much. Their jealousy and envy and resentment got focused on the most tangible thing they could pin it on, the fact that Gene and I both happened to be Jewish. It wasn't that different from the core of society's anti-Semitism. As a result, the two of them tried to sabotage the band, which, as they saw it, was unfairly manipulated by those money-grubbing Jews. But of course, we kept up the mythology. 4 guys running down the street, jumping in the air, living under one roof. Just substitute New York for Liverpool, and that was us. Yeah. Yeah, right. One night in Texas, in early 1977, a youth group attending a Bible conference gathered in the lobby of our hotel. Trying to be kind, generous, and Christian, one of them walked over to me and said, "I'm going to pray for you." "How dare you?" I said. "What would possibly make you think I need you to pray for me?" Whatever judgments they had of me, it didn't stop a group of them from pressing themselves against my hotel room connecting door to listen to this messenger of Satan strip a willing local of her clothes and inhibitions. When we pulled into arenas now, we saw people brandishing banners and placards and carrying crosses. I was astonished. These people quoted the Bible and called our music satanic. "You're talking about us?" I laughed at the protests at first. As far as I was concerned, they had their hands full monitoring their own practitioners, which turned out to be true as scandals later engulfed Jimmy Swaggart, Jim Baker, and others. I found it amusing that whenever a televangelist was tempted by the devil, it was usually in a hotel with a hooker. The person you have to watch is the one pointing the finger. I also figured the protests were cynical ploys to get publicity. They used us as a stepping stone to some sort of local and later even national notoriety. Of course, that pointed to the fact that we had indeed become a bona fide phenomenon. We're big enough to warrant some idiot carrying a cross in front of our show? When you're successful, everyone wants some, I guess. Later on, I decided I wanted to counter these people. At times, I thought Gene took things too far by trying to use them to fan the fire. I didn't always think that was a good thing. I disagreed that all publicity was good publicity. Antagonizing these people wasn't the answer. I didn't want to address them individually or give them the importance they were seeking, but I wanted to stop playing the game. I simply wanted to say the allegations weren't true. We were not knights in Satan's service or devil worshippers or anything else. Yes, we had a bass player who spat blood and breathed fire and called himself evil incarnate. But if you went to the movies, you'd also see a guy who wanted to suck your blood, and another with bolts in his neck who'd been brought back to life by a mad scientist and a jolt of electricity. If they saw a guy on TV with his face painted white and his hair pulled up on top of his head and thought he was real and that he was stating facts when he said he was evil incarnate, they were the ones who were crazy, not us. Did these people really think we looked like this all day? Did they also think the guy who played Batman was really Batman? The way I saw it, Kiss wasn't going against anything, whether it was religion or politics. Kiss wasn't even about rebellion. We didn't tell people to tear anything down or to refuse to play by the rules. We said, become who you want to be. It was about self-empowerment. It was celebratory. For me, it wasn't about fighting the system. It was about picking your path and believing in yourself. Despite what the religious protesters said, Kiss was all positivity. Hell, all anyone had to do was listen to the lyrics from our mission statement off Destroyer shouted out loud. Well, the night's begun and you want some fun. Do you think you're going to find it? You got to treat yourself like number one. Do you need to be reminded? If you don't feel good, there's a way you could. Don't sit there broken-hearted. Call all your friends in the neighborhood and get the party started. At the same time religious protesters vilified us for being a danger to America's youth, music critics killed us because in other ways we weren't dangerous enough to ourselves.